Or Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello,
nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and true. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds. Welcome to the show, Fred.
Hello, nerds!
Oh my God, dude, you must be like some kind of like free diving champion or something. That was a long hello. Well, welcome to the show, Fred.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
You don't mess around, my friend. I feel like we have so much to talk about. And oh, by the way, I'm guessing we can go like about an hour, or do you have a hard stop that you got to run to? And
No, we can go as long as we need to.
Okay, awesome. So I guess a lot of people already know you, but for those who may not be as familiar with you, could you just kind of give us a little bit of your pre-Yang background, like who's Fred the Felon, and what's your story?
Let me shout out a couple people first. First of all, I wanted to, because there's a lot of people that have helped me along my Yang, during my Yang, when I got Yanged, kind of how I got Yanged, and then along the way too, up until now. So I want to shout out or thank Quintus, Chet, and Jeff and Rondi of Abundance for America, as well as Sola and Christine Donahue, as well as Boyce Littlefield, who is able to, he and I and some other people created a Content Creators Network, which is obviously you're part of. And then there's at America Lee, I wanted to thank her and hey, I stand with her, with Erica on a few things. But yeah, let's talk about my let's talk about how I got yanged, so to speak. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. By the way, Fred, we had a little bit of a disconnect because of the internet connection. I know you wanted to shout out a few people, and we got Erica, but we didn't get anyone that you may have shouted out before that.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to say thanks to Quintus and Quintus, Jeff, and Rondi and the gang, as well as Sola and Christine Donahue at Abundance for America. And then Alyssa Nerdiful, or Alyssa Monet Mason, and Boyce Littlefield, me, him, and you and other people have been working on this Content Creators Network, which is awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So you wanted to know a little bit more about my background, correct?
Yeah, man.
So just to kind of give you a background, I grew up kind of in a rough situation. My mom was kind of mentally ill and was a drug addict and a prostitute. My dad was, a drug dealer, and my aunt adopted me. My grandfather had 2 daughters. My aunt adopted me. And by the time I was 13, I was back in the system in a children's home. And I graduated from that when I was 18, went pretty much at 19, went straight to prison, and got out and didn't really know what to do with myself because I didn't really have any skills. So I struggled a lot until I got into the sales industry. And then when I got into the sales industry, it really fit me. It fit my personality. I have about 20 years of experience in sales and marketing, in, your Wolf of Wall Street type telephone room situations. And then I got into mortgage as well. And then I just really got burnt out on it. And then the last year and a half, I've been trucking. So I go by Fred the Felon because I have I really have a passion for helping felons and addicts rather. So, with that being said, we have a saying: it takes a man to teach a man how to be a man. Each one teach one. And so I have 13 years clean, no drinking, no drugging. So I'm just really passionate about teaching other men how to be men.
Yeah, so your name, Fred the Felon, is not a figurative handle.
It is not.
You had done some time. Yeah.
Yes, correct. Now I haven't had a problem with the law as much as a traffic ticket, in a bunch of time. So I got 13 years clean, no drinking, no drugging, and it's been 20 years since I've had a brush with the law.
Now, how did you make your way out of that? Because the statistics are pretty tough when people spend time incarcerated, that it's probable that they kind of come back. And it sounds like you were able to break away. What do you think was the driver for that?
Well, I honestly reading books or just intaking knowledge. And then, I grew up around sports and taking account and being accountable, right, for yourself. So it was like one of those situations where, you did the time. Now it's time to do, you did the crime rather. Now it's time to do the time. And then when I was in, I didn't, like a lot of people get caught up when they're in, they get caught up in the tribalism in terms of, they get tattoos all over, and I've got a few tattoos, but they're just, I didn't have a single tattoo when I got out, right? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a lot of people adorn and wear the prison lifestyle their whole life once they go in, right? And there's a follower's mindset in there where people kind of get all caught up in, all the politics that go along with being in prison. And I didn't do all that, I was like, dude, I'm here to do my thing. I did really well in prison in terms of, I had a few skirmishes here and there. But it really wasn't that bad of a situation, really. Can you hear me?
I heard, and maybe this is just sort of like the total noob who doesn't know shit about prison, which is me. But I've watched some documentaries, and my understanding is, to survive, you have to kind of join a tribe for protection, and you can't just be, you can't take the Swiss approach and say, well, I'm neutral. You really do have to link up with a group. Did you feel that way, or is that just Hollywood?
Yes and no. It just really depends on who you are, right? So, obviously, you sit with your own people regardless of where you're at in the house, in the chow hall, right? But there's some people that are more insane and crazy about that than others, right? And I was just one of those, I'm still a big guy, I'm 250 pounds, but back then I was 250 pounds of solid muscle, right? It was in my 20s, and people think, you have some gonads now. Back then in my 20s, I was just excuse, I was just very I would just say, excuse me, right? And people would just kind of go away. You know what I mean? And
I don't, but I could imagine.
Yeah, but and you'd be surprised, really, even in prison, people, by and large, people avoid confrontation, and you know, you do have your situations like that, but it just really depends on your leadership skills and the way you approach things. And people are more animal than they are human many a times. I know that sounds terrible to say it, but you know, if you have a lot of leadership skills, you can kind of not have to deal with all that.
Well, hey, congratulations, man. You've definitely beaten a lot of the odds, and I mean, I used to smoke cigarettes a lot, and it took me like 10 years to quit cigarettes. I don't know how you've. I can only imagine how difficult it is to also quit other stuff that you're kind of, you know, you're chemically addicted to. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, it just took, you know, the first step, you know, of trying to figure out, you know, like what kind of life I want for myself. And then obviously, like, this is not it. And then from there, going from that to, okay, how do I get the life that I want to have? And then who has the life that I want? And then all I have to do is just do what they do, and I'll have what they have.
Right on, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a lot of people don't have that focus, but you definitely do, and that's awesome that you got onto the sales path.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're doing pretty good. I think I saw on Twitter a picture of you in a suit and tie.
Yeah. So it's funny because I brought that card home one time to my lady, and she said, "Who is this?" Right? He looks so incredibly weak and soft. Right?
I would have got my mortgage from that guy.
Yeah, I know. Right? It's funny because my lady thought it was so funny when I brought that card home. You know, she was like, "Oh man," she was like,
weak ass.
Yeah, it's just funny because, and I'm just a really nice guy, by the way. I'm not a tough guy or anything. I'm just a nice person, you know. But you know, it is what sometimes life hands you lemons, so you got to make lemonade, you know.
Yeah. So now, how did you transition from sales and wearing a suit and that kind of job to becoming a trucker? What was that decision like?
Well, I just made the decision. I just said, this is something I want to do, right? And so I was just like, I went to a school for like a month, and then I had a lady reach out to me that was part of a smaller company out of Chicago. And rather than go through one of the huge trucking companies, I just went through them in terms of like my training. And basically I had a guy that trained me like for a few days, and then they just sent me out on the truck. Right? And it was tough. I'll be honest with you, it was really, really tough for like the first 2 weeks because, you know, I've worked for 3 companies in the year and a half I've been doing this, and they're all Lithuanian immigrant companies. And I could not say anything negative. I would never work for like one of these mega companies. And I love the Lithuanian Chicago market companies. They're phenomenal.
I didn't know there was, is that like a large contingent of trucking companies have a lot of Lithuanian immigrant entrepreneurs?
Well, yeah. There's a lot of Indians, Sikhs, Russians, Lithuanians, Poles. There's just a lot, especially out of the Chicago area in the Chicago market, right? And then there's some Filipinos too, as well.
Wow, all kinds.
Yeah. And they're just super efficient, and they don't have a lot of the red tape that's involved with the mega carriers, like the Swifts and the Schneiders and the stuff like that.
I could imagine. What when you decided to become a trucker, what was it that appealed to you? Was it like the independence, or sort of like kind of not having to deal with a lot of layers of management, or like what was it that you thought
It
like,
was
oh yeah, I want to be?
yeah, it was both that and like in sales, I've made a lot of money. I've made like tons of money, right? And then I've
Mhm.
made, you know, 60 grand. You know what I mean? And then tons of
Mhm.
money and then 40 grand. And
Right.
then tons of money and then, 60
It
grand.
was
Right?
volatile. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's really, really volatile. And I was like, okay, let's just, I got a mortgage. I got two newer cars. I have a 160-acre ranch about 3.5 hours from my house. That I'm trying to develop. It's just raw land.
Wow.
So I got all this. I got all this cool stuff, and the up and down of trying to pay for it can be difficult. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so the trucking gives you more predictable earnings? Is it pretty
Yeah,
steady?
yeah.
Yeah. And then when you want to take time off, can you just say, "Hey, I don't want to do any more for a couple weeks. I need to work on the ranch," or how does that work?
Well, I took 6 days to kind of go up to my ranch and check some things out, and plan out my development, the development of it.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, that's, basically you get one day off. So if you're out for 6 weeks, you can come home for 6 days.
Mm.
But then recently I've just kind of been chasing around the campaign. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
And are you able to combine that with like bringing cargo and stuff, or are you
Yeah.
taking time off?
Yeah. I just like, I would get a load to, like, for example, I got a load to LA and then went to the LA rally and then the LA fundraiser and then
Yeah.
met up with, by the way, PSP and, Paget, Problem Solver Politics. I wanted to shout them out as well. I saw them in LA. And I did a interview with Cardin and Cody, and LA was phenomenal. The flipping rally was unbelievable.
I heard. It sounded like a Lollapalooza for the Yang Gang. It was crazy.
It was insane. It was literally insane. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. So how did you go from, okay, so you've been trucking for a year and a half. How did your paths cross with this guy Andrew Yang? Like where how did he show up on your doorstep?
So basically, I have a friend. His name is Red Viking Trucker. Shout out to Red Viking Trucker. It's a friend of mine, and Andrew was doing an interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of listening, but kind of not, because quite honestly, I don't like Democrats.
Okay.
I just don't, right? For various reasons, which we can go through. So I was kind of just like, ho ho hum, whatever. But then there's always a point when you're a political person that the moderator or the person that's interviewing usually tries to like put you in a box or something, on your
Mm-hmm.
policy. And he said, well, no, that's not what it's about. It's not about left or right, but forward, right? And then when he said
Mm-hmm.
that, I was just like, what? Holy cow, who is this guy? Right? And I was like able to automatically like hear, because my ears perked up, because with my guys, I always keep things down to like the solution, right? Like what's your desired result? What are the steps to get there? Is there anybody that we need to bring on board to kind of help you get there? Okay, what's step one? Okay, start there, call me back, right?
Right.
And, if you call me back whining about your life and you haven't done anything in regards to step one, then you're wasting my time. Call back when you're ready, right?
Yeah.
Kind of tough love kind of stuff, So I was just like, that was like music to my ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, he was a Democrat. So that was a problem for me. And I didn't really know his platform, but all I just knew was $1,000 a month was insane, and who's going to pay for it? And this guy is a complete socialist, communist, Marxist, idiot who doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. That was my, if I'm being completely honest, that was my initial impression, right? So my buddy calls me up about a week later and said, hey, they're looking for people to do ride-alongs. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do a ride-along with this guy. Right? And then I thought about it for like a day and a half. And then I called him back. I said, you know what? Book it. Right? So this is like this is like 6 weeks out. And I booked it with the idea in mind. I'm going to get this socialist in my truck and I'm going to smash him. Right? Like he doesn't know squat.
You'll convert him.
Yeah, I'm just like, dude, you don't know squat. You're just like you don't know what you're talking about, right? So So about 2 weeks before the meeting, I do kind of a deep dive, you know, in who he is, and you know, kind of to know thy enemy, so to speak.
Little research.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of research. So I wake up one day, I listen to his book, 7 hours long. Then I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I listen to the Breakfast Club. And then first of all, when I listened to the book, I was trying to come up with because I'm so solution oriented. I was trying to come up with a solution as to how I am going to make a transition out of trucking and be able to pay for all this cool stuff that I have. And be able to keep the lifestyle that I have. That was my biggest concern. Yeah. Because when I listened to the book, I just knew that most of everything that he said was true. And I noticed that a societal breakdown would be terrible for most people.
Yeah. So you did a fair amount of research before the ride along. You listened to his book actually before he came on in the truck.
Correct. As a matter of fact, when he stepped out of the car, I said, "Hey, I'm going to give you a shot. When you win the nomination, I'm going to give you a shot." And I know that he can win. So if I can encourage anybody in the Yang Gang, I'll go to I was at the LA rally, and then there was like an after party at the LA rally, and I was like, if I hear another thing about 2024, there's going to be a bar fight in this bar right now. Right?
Well, what did you hear about 2024?
No, I just hear it all the time from people talking about 2024, or if he doesn't make it, where are we going to land? Right?
Oh.
And like to me, there is no if, there's only when. Right? And that win is when he wins. Right? So we got to have an attitude of abundance. We got to have instead of a mindset of scarcity as a Yang Gang. Right? I hear people all the time that say, well, when he gets to a certain point, then I'll donate. Or when he gets to a certain point, then I will I will call people, or I'll talk to people about him. Right? Well, I say he's not going to get to that point unless you do those things. Yeah. So you gotta have some faith and live in that abundance mindset. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, Russell Wilson always says you got to expect great things to happen and you got to work hard, but you also have to, you got to believe. Yeah. And you can't just wait. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to believe. So there's got to be a sense of urgency on our part to make this happen. And he's not alone in this. Our candidate is phenomenal. But we have to do our part. And part of that is training our minds and seeing things in our mind's eye of success.
So before you guys did the ride along, it sounds like you kind of were already leaning in his direction as a result of the research that you did, or did you need some
Correct.
convincing?
Correct. I was 90% there, honestly.
Yeah.
But I still needed. Actually, when I took in all this information, right, I struggled big time, mightily, for like 3 days. I couldn't sleep. I was like not eating very well. I was just like irritated, and I was struggling with like, I'm gonna have to support a Democrat.
Right. You had the cognitive dissonance. It was like some internal struggle.
Yeah. Well, there's a meme going out right now that has, I think, Homer Simpson lying in bed, like not sleeping, and said Republicans or conservatives thinking about up at night, thinking about Yang, and it says Yang makes sense, right? Right. Yeah, and so that's kind of what happened to me. And at the end, by like halfway into the third day, you know, because I tell my guys when I sponsor guys and I talk to them, I say, either live your values or just get new ones, get new values. So, and I just had this moment of clarity where I was like, honestly, you're struggling with tribalism, the red versus blue tribalism right now. Right. And I'm not for like rich versus poor, red versus blue. I'm anti-tribalism, right? Yeah. I'm not for red versus blue, rich versus poor, black versus white, what have you, right? Yeah. So it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Well, you just either have to get some new values or you have to support Andrew Yang. Yeah. So once I was able to take that and internalize it, then the rest was you know, like I just dove. I was 90% there. What I needed from the other 10% came from Andrew, right? So yeah, tell me about that. So literally, I tried to kind of like be a prick to Andrew in the truck a little bit, right? Yeah. Like just to kind of see, because there was this little 10% of me that wanted to say that he's everything that a Democrat is. Right. Because what Democrats have in the last, you know, he said it in on the Bill Maher interview. He's like, Democrats, you know, he's like, hey, identity politics, I'm the son of immigrants, and I understand the impulse, but Democrats have to know that it's a very poor way to win elections, and that 30 years ago, the Democrat Party used to be about the little guy or gal, and we need to get back to that. So my impression of Democrats as of the last 30 years has been to find a group of auto workers or a minority or a group of women or whatever, and say, I'm your hero. I alone can save you. I'm your hero. I'm your savior. Vote for me. And it's very elitist, and it's very it's like, trust me, I got this, right? Right. It's not empowering for sure. Yes. Yeah. And so I just kind of took it to him on a bunch of things, right? And I was hoping, what I was hoping for is for him to be offended, right? And to prove everything that I said was true about him in my mind, right? Because I've already got this guy in my head. I'm thinking like, this guy's a Democrat. He's going to get all butthurt and act like he's offended. And he was pretty much like, yeah, okay. And then he like to completely like diffuse the whole situation. Right. Yeah. You were ready for him to get all kind of emotional and kind of snowflakey. Yeah,
And
like I asked
right.
him, like hard questions. I was like, "Are you gonna do what Hillary did and like offer black people hot sauce and Beyonce concerts and LeBron James, which they already have access to? Or are you gonna actually do something for the black community, right? I lived in a black community in St. Louis, right? Instead of like take their self-confidence away by patting them on the back and saying, "Oh, poor minority," right?
Yeah.
And he was like, "That's a really good," he was like, "That's a really good point," right? Like,
Yeah.
and I just say things that I think are true, right? And he was very gracious with his time, and one of the things, and I said this in the video, one of the things I like about him is he's a great listener and he seeks to understand first and seeks to be understood second.
Yeah. How long did you ride around with him? Like for a couple hours?
For a couple hours, and then I followed him around New Hampshire for a couple days as he pitched these groups of people.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, because you saw him in the early days when the crowds weren't 5,000 people, right?
This was like 5 people in a diner, right? 5
including the
diner.
waitress.
Yeah. This was 25 people, 30 people in a house, right? And like I knew then as much as I knew now, right, that he could win. I'm like, this guy can win. I know he can. I know that this guy can win.
Yeah. Now, how has your sort of engagement model with the campaign evolved? So you started out as yeah, sure, I'll let this guy ride along with me. Then you got into like, oh, I think this guy can win. I'm gonna kind of see what he's like out on the trail. And now you've got this Yang Gang creators group that's very active. What's your typical sort of day like working on the campaign, I guess informally or formally? Like how's that working out?
So right after they dropped the video, they brought me aboard the social media moderator camp portion. Right for base camp. And because they wanted to have more of a conservative voice and a few conservatives in there. And to be quite honest with you, I took a test that said I am a libertarian centrist. That's what the test said. But I think
there's nothing wrong with that, Brett.
Well, I think as the Democrat Party has been just pushed more and more left, some of us have just went to the conservative market just because we felt that we didn't have a place. But
I see.
Back to the question at hand. So I was a moderator for a while, and then I kind of distanced myself from the moderation portion just because I won't really get into that, but somebody had said, hey, why don't you just figure out a way to raise the money for the Yang trailer, right? So we raised the money for the Yang trailer, and I'm not a moderator anymore. And then there was a group of people that decided to form a super PAC, and I'm a director for the Truckers for Yang and the Yang Gang coordinator. So basically, I will be directing the attention market for Abundance for America. So Truckers for Yang is kind of a kickoff for Abundance for America currently.
Okay, so there's a lot in there. First, I know a lot of people are very curious about the wrapping the truck.
Yeah, I sent you an email about that too. Can you pull that up?
Yeah, I'll pull that up while you give a little background. I mean, it seemed like you raised that money in like no time. Like, how long did
Yeah,
it take you to raise that money?
like 10 hours.
That's sick. So
Yeah.
when's how's it coming along? And I'll pull it up in a second. How's the project coming along?
So Monday I'm delivering in Georgia, and then from Georgia I'm going back to give this particular trailer and pick up another one. They're gonna take this trailer and wrap it, and then they're gonna keep me local, like within 500 miles of Chicago. And then I'm gonna pick the trailer up and then take the trailer from where I'm at in Chicago to Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, I think I found the picture. Hold on, let me just share this screen
for the debate.
So the trailer will be ready before the debate's over, before the debate happens.
Correct.
Are you gonna like park that shit out in front of the debate?
Actually, I'm gonna do donuts. Like they'll have an area that's blocked off, and I'm gonna do donuts. I'm gonna have somebody in the passenger seat, like Boyce Littlefield, maybe Alyssa, right? Alyssa's gonna be doing her dance thing, right? And like the only way the media is gonna ignore Andrew Yang is willfully and deliberately.
Which is not hard to imagine. But I think this will be such a cool story. They will they can't help. It's like a media catnip. It's like, what? I mean, because I think there's this interesting tension between Yang, Math, whatever, but then when you've got a trucker supporting him, that's like a fun tension, right? Like it's a little bit of it's not what they would expect. So I would imagine you'll get some nice coverage here. How did you get the design done? It looks beautiful.
Well, there's a guy that does all the. His name is Vega, and you can look it up, Vega.design, right? And he's done this guy's done $5 million cars, like Bugattis and stuff like that. Like he's wrapped like some of the biggest oil sheiks, all kinds of weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he's very, very well known in Chicago, and he's the one doing the work.
Wow.
And then this is going to be the first generation truck. And then shout out to Sujith Janesh. Sujith is actually creating a website that is going to track this particular truck.
Oh, wow. So you could like see its real-time location?
Yes. And so Yang Gang can come and take a picture with the truck. And I've actually got, if you see right here.
Oh, wait, what is that? Hold on. Oh, shit. I would imagine. Now, you probably shouldn't wear that while you're in a moving vehicle, but that will be available for people when they want to take their picture. Now, is that for the people to take their picture with you, with that thing on it, or they put that thing on their head?
Whatever they want to do. I mean, this is their project, right? So the way I do leadership is not top down, right? So my leadership style is different than a lot of people, right? Because this is what the people want. So I'm giving the people what they want, right? And it's not just me giving the people what they want. Abundance for America is giving people what they want. So as far as super PACs go, like just so the Yang Gang knows, anytime you spend over 1,000 on a personal project, it needs to have, like you need to either form a super PAC or not, right? And just not do the project, right?
Yeah.
So there has been some, within the campaign, there has been some confusion, not necessarily from the campaign and Andrew's people, but just from the Yang Gang on, how to deal with super PACs, right? But the particular super PAC that we are talking about, which is Abundance for America, their sole goal is to fund Yang Gang and Yang Gang projects. Yes, correct.
Yeah, so tell me about this super PAC. I mean, I guess I could imagine some people feeling like, oh, that doesn't sound super grassroots. How did you think about participating in that, and what was your thought process to put your support behind it?
Well, first of all, we have to live in the real world, and like Hillary raised $1.4 billion in order to lose, right? So we need to have a certain sense of do re mi, right? We got to get money, right? So the dough, like if every single American had $2,800 now that they could give to Andrew, great, perfect. That's going to work, right? I'm not saying what the campaign's doing is not working by any stretch of the imagination, but what I am saying is, as far as funding Yang Gang and Yang Gang projects, that's really what the super PAC is for.
And so, how much do you think you'll be raising for how much is Abundance going to try and put together?
So I have a personal goal, which has nothing to do with Abundance for America's goal. I think you would be better off and I think you should do an interview with Quintus Jet. That's what I was going to recommend for you, right? Quintus Jet, look him up.
Okay, will do.
He's got a doctorate degree in organizational management. I mean, it's just super put together, right? I can't say enough about Quintus Jet, right? And you can look him up, find him on Facebook.
Yeah, I was making a note to myself.
Yeah, I have a personal goal of $100 million.
What? How much?
$100 million.
$100 million. Oh my.
Yeah. So the kickoff for Abundance America, for the kickoff for Abundance for America is, I mean, people already know that it exists because Quintus was already interviewed in a Politico. There was an article written about him, right? And Jeff Miller and Rondi Fritsch. So there's going to be a few different directors. Sola from Detroit is going to be the person that's going to be handling the social media and the tech portion. As far as Truckers for Yang, the Truckers for Yang division, I have Sujith that's running the tech. And we're probably looking for somebody to kind of, because I drive a lot, we're probably going to be looking for somebody that can help me in terms, because we've had to put together everything you've seen while I'm working 14 hours a day.
Yeah. Right.
Pretty much on a daily basis, working 14 hours a day, and I've been, texting and emailing on like text to call and call to text or whatever, voice text or voice email, rather. It's been very, very difficult. So we'll probably be looking for a point person for, but yeah, $100 million is my personal goal. This truck is going to be the first generation truck. And then we are going to have 5 trucks that we are going to ask a donation of $50,000 a piece for those 5 trucks and raise $250,000. And the person who decides that they want to sponsor a truck will be able to, as long as it's approved by Abundance for America, it will be known on the website when they track it.
Right.
Like if it was you, it would be, if you gave $50,000, it would be Tom's truck.
The Nerds for Yang truck.
Yeah, the Nerds for Yang truck. Right? It would be the Nerds for Yang truck, right?
I feel like that I can sense that you used to be in sales, Fred.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the $50,000 is actually cheap because the third generation truck is going to be 10 trucks, and we're going to ask for a $100,000 donation per truck.
Wow. So it'll be almost like a convoy. We need like Elon to get involved in this.
Well, yeah, that's a possibility. We can get Elon involved.
Maybe get some of those Tesla, those self-driving trucks driving around. With
Yeah,
it.
yeah. One of the things we're considering doing right now is putting a self-driving kit on this truck once we are able to raise some money.
Oh wow, that would be pretty
Yeah.
sweet. I know we people are going to want to ask questions, but before we get to the questions, I think I heard when you were talking to maybe you were talking to Moving Forward or some podcast about Second Amendment.
Yeah.
And you had some opinions on that, and then you sent me a doc that you wanted to share. So I'm going to pull that up. Give me 1 second. Here it is. So you are a gun rights supporter, gun owner. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm a gun. Let's just say I'm a gun rights supporter.
Okay, got it. And what's your view on Yang's gun policies?
Well, I don't really have an issue with the gun policies because I have a hard time believing, first of all, I mean, when pressed, he said in the early going, he said, I don't know how much we can get done because both sides are so entrenched, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard him that come out of his mouth before. And he's also said if we can convince Americans, right, of certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, which leads, and I really, a lot of the convincing is because I heard this guy say, he said, I was going to sell my gun back to the government, but after a thorough background check, I saw that the buyer was unreliable and abusive toward others.
Mm.
Right? So
a background check of the government.
Correct. So
okay. Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. Right here is Chicago versus Houston. They're both very similar in racial diversity. They're both very similar in the income. The one thing that is different is, for whatever reason, Chicago has taken guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens and leaving those people, for lack of a better word, vulnerable to attack from people that are not so good.
Right. So your argument is, why is Houston having so fewer homicides than Chicago, even though the makeup of the areas are similar? Yes.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily my argument. It's just the numbers. There's no happy numbers. There's no sad numbers. There's no joyful numbers. There's no hateful numbers. There's no angry numbers. The numbers are the numbers. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, I've heard women say, and they make a really good point. They talk about birthing rights, and like, you're not a woman, so you shouldn't speak on it, right? And even Andrew says, we're just going to get out of the room and let women kind of decide what they want to do on that. So I kind of take the same approach to that. Like, if you're not a gun owner, then maybe, or if you're not a gun supporter, maybe you shouldn't, if you've never fired a weapon, or you don't have a desire to defend yourself from people that have weapons, maybe you should kind of stay out of it.
So is it possible? Is it possible that part of the phenomenon going on in Chicago is a lot of these homicides are being committed through sort of gang on gang violence, and Houston may not have as high a gang population? Or is your thinking, no, a lot of these homicides are just law-abiding people getting shot and they can't defend themselves?
Well, you don't think there's gangs in Houston's Third Ward?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are. I just don't know if it's the same number.
I mean, I don't know how older you are. I don't know how older you are, but I mean, you don't remember the Ghetto Boys and like Bushwick Bill? Like, like, like my mind is playing tricks on me. Like Houston ain't no joke, man.
Right. So you're arguing like Houston's not like Disneyland and Chicago's like, you know.
No, it is not like Disneyland. You go down to Houston and you can get your neck broke quick.
Yeah, I guess I've only been to Austin. That's not really a hard place.
Yeah, Austin is like the jewel of Texas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. Like as a gun owner myself, I totally appreciate how there's an attraction. It's just cool going to the range and like kind of improving your skills, and then also from a tech point of view, like seeing the craftsmanship and the kind of design of the piece. And there is something visceral about going and popping off some rounds at targets and things. And then for me, I also feel like I actually purchased my gun partly in the case of civil unrest in a environment where, you know, something crazy happens and people are doing crazy things. I felt like I wanted to have the option to defend my wife and kids, you know, in our house.
And that's a smart decision. And one of my closest friends says, if you have something and can't defend it, you don't own it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
And so I am supportive of the Second Amendment to an extent. I do feel like there is a challenge where what do we do when people who are really disturbed and don't know how to kind of channel their frustration, you know, get their hands on a weapon and go, you know, shoot up a school? Like, do you think there's anything that we can do about that?
Unfortunately, like people wouldn't want me as president because I would just put armed guards at schools.
Right. So you would try and neutralize the threat by having
these guys that and you know, you have similar situations where you have guns, but there is no, you know, and if I could just be frank, a lot of these guys that do this, that commit these type of crimes, they all 26 out of 27 come from the same situation, right? These active shooters, they all are people. They're all young males that don't really have a lot going on for themselves, and they, you know, I could speak more to it, but I'm probably, you know, I would probably do a disservice to the audience if I said what I really thought.
Why do you say that? Because I kind of agree with you that the root cause may not be that they have access to guns, but that they're in this state of mind where they feel like this is a logical thing to do.
Let me just say the root cause is when growing up, you had an angry male who did not have a man in the home, and the woman was working 2 and 3 jobs to try to take care of the family, and you have this angry male who is at home by himself, and he gets a message. He gets the wrong message from his community about how to deal with problems. He's not a very good problem solver. That's one of the things that I work with felons and addicts. The research shows that felons and addicts, by and large, are not good problem solvers, and that they're the way that they deal with stress is not good. So I think some of the similar things are happening. It's one of the things I really enjoyed about Andrew when you read his book.
Mm-hmm.
He actually talks about how joblessness and hopelessness affects men, and he talks about men's issues.
Yeah.
Right. And so men's issues are not talked about, and I hesitate to talk about men needing men around because somehow it feels like it's an attack on women, and that's not what it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's an attack on women at all. I mean, I can understand your concern that some people may interpret it that way, but it is sad that no one's really talking about how we develop the next generation of strong, independent, confident men that solve problems.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that.
So when me and him talked about the educational system, I noticed there was a incoming question about the educational system in a global world, right? So I don't know. I'm not the end all be all in education. I'm not I got my GED and didn't even study for it. Like the Army National Guard took me down. I took the ASVAB test. They were like, "You're super intelligent. Just go to we'll drive you down and just take the test. I bet you could take the GED and pass it." I took the GED, no pre-test, no nothing. It just passed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means like, wow. If people have to study for the GED, that is really, really a kind of a sore on where we're at educationally, right?
Yeah.
So, but one of the things that me and him talked about that we don't see in our educational system that I really appreciate about Andrew is we don't teach mindset. Like, I'm a firm believer that Grant Cardone, Patrick Bet-David, and Gary Vaynerchuk, these business minds talk about mindset, and the math, the science, the social studies, the English, all that's well and good. But if you don't have the mindset, I mean, I can count on how many, like, let me put it this way. Andrew has a really, really great educational background. But I know people that went to Ivy League schools that make the same kind of money I make. So it's not a good return on their investment to make what I make, and they're $100,000 in debt, right? What distinguishes that person that's making $100K and they have a master's degree and they went to Ivy League school versus Andrew is Andrew's mindset.
Yeah. And
so we don't, like, for whatever reason, we don't talk about that. And Robert Kiyosaki, at one point he had a deal going and they squashed it. He had a deal going where he was going to actually come up with an educational program that talks about money and your mindset and things like that. Because, even Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or can't, you're right. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, even people sometimes will say, well, we can't do that. And I'll say, no. Don't put me in there. Right. You can't do that. Right.
Yeah.
I can do anything I want to do as long as I'm willing to do the work and put in the time it takes to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of these great business minds know that. So that's one of the things. But yeah, as far in terms of these active shooters and stuff like that, I think a lot of it has to do with the mindset of scarcity that is being portrayed, that's being sold on the news constantly and through the media, that you have to have this certain life, this certain life. And then for the young men, they don't, a lot of these young men don't have other men that they can lean on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I hope that gets talked about more. I really do, because if we have a generation, if the next generation of boys become broken men, like, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Not, right?
Yeah, and so Andrew talks about that too in his book. He talks about raising boys from taking boys from men and turning them into men, right? And then another thing that I think is, and how that affects women a lot of times, there's a similar situation where in the workforce and in other places, you see women that are stomping on each other to try to get to the top rather than lifting each other up, because there are a lot of men in power in corporations. And in order for women to raise up, a lot of times, not always, right? But you'll see the cattiness between them, and that they will go out of their way to sabotage and stomp on each other rather than lift each other up.
Yeah, that mindset of scarcity can affect everyone.
Yeah, and it's particularly that man. I love when he talks about that mindset of scarcity, because I saw it big time in prison, right? And you can see, I mean, we are animals first, we're humans second, right? And my personal belief is when we lose that 13, 14, 15 points, when we can't pay our bills, it's because we start thinking in terms of our survival techniques start coming through, right? And we stop thinking logically, and we start thinking about just like, all right, I'm scared. What do I need to do to feed myself? Now you get two packs of a pack of wolves has a 50-mile square radius that they roam, and if you get two packs of wolves in the same area, and they're chasing after the same caribou, same elk, same whatever.
Yeah.
And that's where you get these hateful ideologies come from, right? Where you get rich versus poor, you get black versus white, you get red versus blue, because everybody feels like they're chasing after the same steak. And then the media doesn't help, because the media likes to portray that there's only so many steaks out there. Right. And there's not enough. The media tries to portray that there's not enough food in the world to feed everybody. And there's not enough money in the world to make everybody happy. And there's not enough love in the world to make sure that everybody's loved. And it's total BS. There is enough for every single person on the planet.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely not it's a very different vibe than I think what the current president sort of is promoting. But did you previously support Trump when he ran, or how did you think?
Actually, I didn't vote for Trump, but I supported him after he won. Right? I was expecting him to be a total prick, honestly, when he won. And he kind of won me over with his speech. Right?
Which one? The inauguration speech? The American Carnage?
Yeah. So he kind of won me over, like with that speech, but I was still and then, so like for the first year, he came out with the Farm Bill, and then the First Step Act and the opportunity zones. And I was like, wow, this is actually a pretty good thing. And then this last year, where he has been sowing division amongst people groups purposely, and going just completely and totally insane. Like sometimes I feel like there's a disconnect somewhere. Like sometimes I feel like he has a mental issue, or he has like onset dementia is coming in or something. Because by and large, like I do like people that call it like they see it, right? But like and I think only Andrew can, because I tried to trump Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Literally, I Donald Trump Andrew. Like, I hit him with everything. I'm like, dude, you know you're Asian, right? Like, no, like you know, like you know the right is going to tear you to pieces, and
Right.
they're going to go after your family. They're going to, you know, like they're you know, it's going to get bad. It's going to get ugly. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm prepared for it. Don't even worry about it. I got this. Right. Right. And I like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna Donald Trump Andrew. It's just
Right.
it's not gonna happen. And the problem with the top three, right, is they're gonna try to out troll the troll. And when I used to be a fighter. When you're in the ring with a Mike Tyson type, what you have to do is outpoint that guy and strategize, and then take him out in the, you know, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round.
Right. You don't want to get in a slugfest with Mike Tyson in the first round.
Correct. and that's what these top three are going to try to do. They're going to try to out Trump the Trump. And so is the lady from California. She's going to try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so
you don't think Biden or Warren would be successful trying to out troll the troll?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. And I also agree with you that, well, I was never a Trump supporter ever. There was a period where I thought, oh, after he got elected, that the whole campaign, it was like kind of like an act. And then when he gets to the White House, he'll kind of move to the center and just be like a pragmatic kind of businessman. But I've not seen that. And it seems like it's getting like the wheels are kind of coming off the bus, especially the last 6 months.
Yeah, the last year, 6 months to a year have been insane, right?
Yeah.
And so like, I'm like, dude, just put the Twitter down, which I understand. Like, for example, if you followed me recently, I've been pretty crazy on Twitter. But the reason I'm doing that deliberately, because Grant Cardone says, get attention. You know, like, people can't buy from you if they don't know who you are. You know what I mean? Like, he says, if you have to yell for it to get it, get it. Right. So because I'm out on my own, and I'm not, you know,
the president of the United States.
No, well, no, I'm saying because I'm out on my own in terms of like doing a project by myself. Right.
Right. I guess my point is, like, how is he able to have all this time? I think he did like 300 tweets in the last like few weeks. But he's presumably he has other things to do as president.
Yeah. So with our president, yeah, like he's just
going
gone,
after Mitt
man.
Romney. It's like, come on, dude, leave.
Yeah, and
like,
then
whatever.
You know, I always say with Donald Trump, one of the things I say is Donald Trump is black socks.
What do you mean by that? I'm not sure I know that one.
So Donald Trump is black socks, and people always ask me, what does that mean? Right? And I says, you don't know if they're dirty, right? And when you pick them up and smell them, it's too late, right? 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 So you can't tell if they're dirty, right? And it doesn't matter how much dirt you throw on them, they're still black socks, right? It doesn't affect them. Whereas Hillary was white socks, right? Everything,
every little speck, yeah,
every little speck shows,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
And like, Donald Trump Donald Trump is a folk hero for white people, 40 and over. If we're keeping it real,
yeah,
right,
of course.
And how I know this is for a couple things, because you know he spoke to the white working class, and my goal is to try to win the white working class back to the Democrat Party, right? And it's very difficult to do because the truckers, like, I go to Denny's, and there's a Denny's connected to most of these truck stops that I go to, and they always have Fox News on, and when they and a situation that I had recently was they were all sitting around talking, and I was like, we're all at the bar, you know, we're not drinking, but it's a bar, and there's TVs on, and I'm like, there's actually a Democrat that I like. When I say actually a Democrat, basically I'm doing trucker talk for, hey, Democrats normally stink, but there's actually a Democrat that I like, and his name is Andrew Yang. The first guy says, well, he's not from here.
What does that mean?
And I don't know, but he said he's not from here. And I said, okay, let me take a step back and let me educate you on how the political process works. There's a $250 form that you have to fill out, and then they background check and make sure that you live in the United States, and that you were born in the United States and that you're a United States citizen. And then we go from there to, yeah, but he's going to do what's best for his people. And I'm like, yes, correct. His people are everyday common Americans. And then we go from there to another guy says, well, his parents aren't from here. And I say, what if I told you my parents aren't from here? And he's like, well, that's different. And I'm like, okay, so let's think about this logically. He's a U.S. citizen. I'm a U.S. citizen. His parents, not born here. My parents, not born here. He's 44 years old. I'm 43 years old. So the only difference between him and me is he doesn't look like you. And you don't know him. If you knew him, you would vote for him. Right? And then you get, what you get is, it's my favorite thing. And I would get it on the phone when I'm making a sale. Right? It's this. Sigh. Right?
You got him.
Right? That sigh is, there's nowhere else to go. Right?
I got no objections left.
It's an admission that you're right, sir. Right? And so when I get it all the time, people say, I love Andrew Yang, but I don't think he can win. Right? So I'm giving these objections to the crowd to teach them how to overcome them. Right? So when people say, I love Andrew Yang, but I don't think he can win, or he's not going to win. I say, okay, interesting you might say that. Is there anybody else that you like better than Andrew Yang? And then there's a pause, and I don't say anything. And they kind of think in their head, like, okay, no, actually there's not. Okay, so there's not anybody that you like more than Andrew Yang, but is there anybody else that you're going to vote for other than Andrew Yang? And they may say something, they may not. And I say, I'm going to submit to you that what you lack is courage. And then I'll just wait. Because people want to talk, but I'll just wait. Right? Like I'm itching to say something.
Yeah.
And everything in my being wants to pounce, but I'm just waiting.
Right.
And the reason I'm waiting is I'm waiting for a response from them. And usually that response is, you have a good point. And I say, all right, so if I have a good point, the real question is, are you the type of person that is going to go with the courage of your convictions, or are you going to go with the crowd or whatever the media tells you?
Yeah.
Or isn't telling you. Right?
What would I think this is I think a lot of people hopefully will watch this video and kind of walk through that journey in terms of that type of conversation, because I think a lot of us can have those conversations between now and election day. The one thing I'm curious about, Fred, is when you were going back and you're saying, well, you know, he's not one of us. He's only looking out for his own people. I mean, that is a very tribal, natural human kind of reaction that we tend to gravitate towards people that look like us and then that we think we know. And a lot of people didn't grow up with people that look like Andrew. And the only times they see them might be like, in kind of in other countries or in like kind of other parts of their life that aren't really, kind of core to their day to day. And I'm curious, like, how do you respond when someone says, look, he's not one of us. He doesn't share our values. Fred, you and me, we're real Americans. He's from some far away place.
Yeah. So basically I say, like we're talking about a guy that was born here in the United States, and I say to them, I mean, he's like, he rode in my truck. He's just like you and me. Right. And I just say to me, and one of the things I do is I say, to me, I judge people's intelligence and their decision-making process on how they accept and their knowledge of. If you know Andrew Yang and you know that he exists, and you've heard of him and heard his policies and watched a long form interview, and your response is not positive, then I question your intelligence and your decision making process.
Yeah.
Or that you came to the conversation with you were looking for confirmation, not information.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I struggle with is if people take the time to sit through like a Rogan interview or any of the long form stuff, the conversion rate, I think, is probably like 70% or higher. But a lot of people don't want to do that. That's not how they roll. They like, I'll give you an example. Like my mom, love her. She's amazing. She has Fox News on all day long. And I have a freaking YouTube channel and I can't get her to watch it, because she's like, wow, he's socialist or all this stuff. And I worry like there are a lot of people who just got Fox playing and they listen to Hannity and Tucker Carlson and, Fox and Friends.
One of those things that you have to do, and I know, so we have this thing about humanity first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And humanity first is, like, great, whatever, right? I'm like, for me, I'm not always humanity first. I'm Andrew first, right? I'm humanity second. I've said that. I've texted that. I've actually tweeted that. I've hashtagged that. I'm Andrew first, humanity second, right? I want to win.
Right.
I want to win, and I'm willing to, like, I've said some pretty unsavory things to truck drivers. Like one guy, I told him, I said, humor me for a moment and pretend you don't know it all, right? Because the thing is that's what you have to be like. And one of the things we have is we have the young crowd, right? I read a book about how to affect culture. And it's one of the things, there's like 1.5 billion, 1.8 billion Christians, right? One of the things that the Christians have done is when they go into places to try to convert people like South America or Asia or different parts of Africa or Eastern Western Europe, what they do is they go for people that are from 8 years old to 25.
Right.
And that's how you affect the culture, because people from 8 to 25 are more, they're soft-hearted, they're more malleable, right? And you can get it, like, there's a lot of people that once they've arrived. Now, you and I know that leaders are learners and leaders are readers, right? And you never stop learning and reading and learning and listening to podcasts and gathering information and stuff like that, even at our age.
Sure.
Right. But a lot of times people our age and higher, everything's already cemented. And there's nothing else that they can learn. And for those people that there's nothing, everything's already, you have to literally jackhammer that cemented concrete and say, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Just sit here for an hour, right? And let this guy disprove or try to disprove this person.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I've tried that. There are some, I won't name them. There are some friends and family who they're just, I mean, it's not concrete. It's like steel that they're just locked in, you know?
Yeah. Well, you got to break out. I tell people that, you know, a lot of times when people say like, it's not worth the effort, for me, there's no wasted effort. Right. And I always go back to the missionaries. How were they able to convert at such a high rate? They went to the young people, and then the older people see what the young people are doing, and they see all the passion, and they're like, wow. Like, for example, shout out to Sujit Janesh again. When I was in the initial meeting for him building the website, I said, here's the thing. Initially, I was thinking we were going to go for truckers, but then I remembered one of my mentors, Gary V, he says, most people focus on their weaknesses. I say, F that, triple down on your strengths. So our strengths is people our age and younger, tech people, young people, stuff like that. So I told Sujit when he was creating the website and, you know, to follow me and stuff like that, I was like, what you need to do is make this like you're the customer.
Right.
Make this like you are the type of person, like you are making this for you. So let's get Twitter involved. Let's get Twitch involved. Let's get, you know, whatever we're going to get involved and make this fun for the young people.
Yeah. Yeah. So your point is like, there's going to be some hardcore Trump voters who are just never going to come off their position. They're locked in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of them, yes. But in order to get those people, you got to be willing to start a fist fight.
Yeah. Unless it's your mom.
Yeah.
In which case...
Not literally. Right. But I mean, you're coming to it with like, hey, we're like, this is going to be a tough sell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We have a policy now where we don't really talk about politics because it ended up being very
a point of contention.
Yeah. And it's just like made like, we're supposed to be spending time as a family, and it started getting kind of like,
nuts.
Angry. Yeah.
I had that with my mother-in-law actually a while back, and now she loves the fact that I am like, she's very shout out to Dorothy Oja, right? She's my mother-in-law, right? She's pretty proud of like how much I know about the political process now.
Yeah, you're super active and super informed, and I can tell you're not just listening to music in that truck. You probably have some audiobooks on file.
Yeah, constantly.
All right, Fred, we haven't had a chance to take questions. We're over time. Is it okay if we take some questions from the audience?
We do whatever as long as it takes. It takes what it takes.
All right, so guys, on the chat, you can go ahead and start typing in questions. And while we're waiting for and I'm not going to be able to go back to the top, so just start putting them in from here. And while we're waiting for some to come through, I do have a random question for you as a fellow gun owner. What is your if you had to pick one handgun, do you have a preference?
I like 45s.
And then
a lot of.
Go ahead. Which ones? Any particular?
I like either Glocks or I'm a fan of Springfield XDs. Right.
Right on.
I like Springfields. I like Glocks. And then as far as the, like a lot of people are into ARs.
Mm-hmm.
I like AKs.
Well, they're supposed to be very reliable, those AKs. They've been tested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I like stuff that's either Croatian or Israeli, stuff like that, like Galil, stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, I'll we've got some questions coming in. Just a quick one, since
P90s are nice too.
I don't get a lot of gun talk on the Nerds React channel, so
No,
I figured
right.
I take advantage since you're here. I had did a charity auction and had like a full day of like quasi gun training with some former SEALs, and they were telling me they always use like H&Ks, and so I thought, okay, I'll put that on the list. And then I tried out some Glocks as well. But actually during, I took another full day of like gun safety training, and the Glock jammed up on me. And I was thinking to myself, man, if I'm in a really intense situation, in a civil unrest situation, defending my house, like I want something that's super reliable. So I ended up getting a Smith & Wesson revolver, old school.
Yeah, revolvers are really good, right?
You think you need more than 6 shots?
Yeah. There's actually a revolver that I like that you can put 410 in. You ever seen those?
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they're like.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice. But
all right, here's the first question. What do you think of Bernie?
So if you're asking that question because you're hoping that, because you're wondering if Yang doesn't win, that Bernie will, I would say get out of that line of thinking right now, and I won't stand for it in an earshot of me. Okay, so Yang is the only solution. Now, in terms of Bernie, right? The only reason I say that is I don't want seeds of doubt to like creep in ever. So in terms of Bernie, one of the things that I find interesting is Bernie's supporters are among the most distrusting of their government you could ever find. Would you agree with that?
That Bernie supporters are distrusting of the government? Yes. Oh, I haven't encountered it. I feel like they're distrustful of the Democratic Party, but not. I didn't think. So I wouldn't think they distrust the government because they support a lot of large government programs. Is the DNC part of the government or no? I consider it not part of the government, but you think it's the same? Well, it's part of the same crew. Correct. So there, a lot of Bernie supporters talk about the establishment and things like that, and I just find it interesting that some of the most distrustful people of the government want to hand a good portion, or if not all, or a greater portion of the job market to the government. And there's just his government federal jobs guarantee program is absolute trash, garbage. Could you imagine if you think the college scandal was great or was fun to watch? Could you imagine the guy that is handing out jobs to poor people? Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for some problems. Yeah, there's gonna be all this jockeying for position. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's gonna be payoffs, and it's gonna be a mess, right? And I don't think Bernie is. First of all, he's too old, and Bernie is just like free everything with no. To me, it's just like free everything without an admission of how it's paid for. Okay, if you think you're just going to raise taxes and not have a value-added tax on top of it, I think another thing that I think that we should do is, and there, shout out to Joe McHugh that gave me this idea. He's running for president as well, but he's
He's writing a book called Hijacking America. But he has a great idea to help to pay for the dividend, which is the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. Like it's not part of the federal government. It's not. It's an oligarchy of bankers. So
right.
So when
But the
we
federal governors are appointed by the government, right? The people who sit on the Federal Reserve
people
Board.
who own the Federal Reserve, when they started in 1913,
Mm.
right? They weren't of the government.
Right. They were of the banking industry.
They're of the banking industry.
Yes,
So it's an
yes.
oligarchy, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
when this guy says you take the Federal Reserve and turn it into a credit union. So a credit union, the
Mhm.
profits from the credit union go back to the customer.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
and there's been no audit of the Federal Reserve since its inception of over 100 years.
Yeah. So you think there might be some funny business going on there too?
Correct. So if you took the Federal Reserve and actually made that a credit union, it could help pay for the dividend. So to answer your question about Bernie, I am not favorable toward Bernie, and I would not if Bernie came up, which he won't. We're going to get all the Bernie supporters because there's nowhere.
You don't think
for
they'll
them
go to Warren? You don't think they'll go to Warren?
No.
Why not?
Because they're not that stupid.
Why do you think? What would be stupid about them going to Warren?
Because she's an automation denier, and she's dumb enough to think she can come up against Facebook and win, and come up against all these big automated like Amazon and Google, that she can come up against tech and win.
Got it. Yeah.
Her plans are complete total trash. They're garbage. Her plans, like the 2% wealth tax, sounds good, right? But when it's been tried in other countries, as Andrew says, people do things to get out of it, like get divorced but keep their assets, stay together, right? Like it's been tried in other and I mean, if you just want a woman president, right? Like my vote would be Tulsi.
Right.
You know, if I just
so why do you think people? But she is polling a lot of strong polling support. Why do you think people are flocking to her?
Well, she's polling strong support because they're only polling Obama and Hillary people. They're only polling people that voted for Obama and Hillary.
Oh, so you're thinking there's this other population of people who've been on the sidelines who don't traditionally participate, right?
In my mind, we're at 20 or 25%. And Biden is at like 10%, 10, 15%.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can get me to believe that Biden, I mean, he can't even put a solid sentence together. And then I hear it all the time. Well, we should just take Yang's policies and put them in the hands of one of these 70-year-olds. I'm sorry. Right? I know that sounds ageist, right? That sounds ageist. I don't care. I don't care how it sounds, right? So you want me to put these highly technical problems and solutions in the hands of somebody who has been in office for years and years and years. And first of all, half of the problems that he's already solved for, those three people didn't even recognize they were problems first.
Yeah.
And then you're going to just hand these solutions off to people that, I mean, there's no reason for me to believe if you can't recognize a problem and come up with a solution that somehow you're going to read a textbook and you just learned how to copy and paste 6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
That you're you're going to enact these policies. Like, it's complete madness to believe that. There's no reason for me to believe that.
All right. I've got another question for you, Fred.
Sorry for the rant.
No, this is good stuff. So David wants to know, can foreigners contribute to a super PAC?
That would be a question for Quintus Jet, but I'm going to err on the side of no.
Okay. And next question, have you spoken to labor unions or folks in the organized labor kind of circles, and how's that gone?
I haven't actually. I would love to do so. If you guys have anybody that you could put me in contact with. Also, I'm looking for American made or even union merch for Truckers for Yang, and maybe for Abundance for America as well.
Yeah, I've heard it's hard to do that. It's hard to find a lot of the supply chain that's still all in the U.S. for clothing and stuff. Have you found it difficult?
It is difficult, yes.
Yeah. Don wants to know, why do you think most truckers fall into the conservative camp? I mean, is that true? Do they mostly fall in the conservative?
Well, most truckers are 94% male. And then if you just do the population is like 70% white.
Mm-hmm.
So, and average trucker 50 years old, 55 years old. So you have a lot of, by and large, if you just, you do the numbers, older white guys are conservative.
Right. So it's a demographic thing.
It's a demographic thing. Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't always like that, I don't think. But I think what happened is the Democrat Party said, and I think it will actually be in the future, it will be hard to win as a Republican, because the majority is going to start ending up to be the minority. I mean, they talked about it on the Fung Brothers. By 2047, the majority is going to be the minority.
Yeah, and
which is fine. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with anybody. You know what I mean? I'm all good. I know who I am. I'm good with who I am. Right. So I got nothing against nobody.
It was interesting because the RNC did a study after Obama got reelected, and the big conclusion was that they needed to branch out and get support from non-white voters, and particularly Hispanics, right?
Well, that. But I tell you what is a threat right now, and people, when I talk to people about it, they don't know about it. It's called Blexit. And yesterday there was Black Leadership Summit, BLS, right?
Oh.
And it's Republicans like Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum, and they're Black conservatives,
right?
So and research shows if the Conservative Party gets just 5% of the Black vote, it's a problem. And then there's a thing that you can look up. That Malcolm X, I'm a huge fan of Malcolm X. A lot of people like Martin Luther King, right? And I got nothing against Martin Luther King, but I like Malcolm X better just because he was like by any means necessary type of dude.
Why am I not surprised that you like Malcolm X?
Well, because I'm just one of those guys that like people don't like. Andrew even talks about it. Like, if you want to change an organization, you have to change the incentives. Like, people don't listen to you until you make them, right? And like, when a lot of times people are like, people want power. I'm like, all humans want power. If you don't realize that, you're not living in reality. I want power. You want power, right? Like, we all want to feel empowered, right? So yeah, I'm a big fan of Malcolm X. And one of the things that he called out the Democrat Party for back then is because they would make a promise to the Black community but not live up to it. And he would say, if he said if you vote Democrat, you're a chump, you're a political chump and a traitor to your race. You could pull it up, right? It's on YouTube. It's 5 minutes long, right? And basically he's saying that the Democrat Party has used minorities they don't care about minority issues. They only care about minority votes. And I submit to you that Andrew Yang is the only Democrat, period, to do anything for women, to do anything for minorities, to do anything for brown people, black people, people of color.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was chatting with Jessica and Lacey yesterday, and they made a good point that, you know, the freedom dividend may be one of the most impactful things you could do for women.
Yes.
And I had a similar conversation with Jermaine Johnson. He was like, you know, the freedom dividend could be the best thing we could do for the African-American community. But for some reason, like, obviously within the Yang Gang, we all believe in the impact of that policy. It doesn't seem to be sort of translating to a lot of people, though. Like
what do you mean?
I think when you look, at least when I look at the polling data, support from women and African Americans is disproportionately low for Yang versus other candidates.
Because they don't know, for one, and for two, another thing that, you know, I was talking about, I have recently, there were 2 black males that were brought into the content creator network. And shout out to Jared, right? He's from Baltimore, and his message on his channel is super impactful, but particularly for the black community, right? The black vote runs through the female.
Yeah.
So anybody that that Hollywood deems as like a hood type or a thug type, right? The Hollywood, what they like to, you know, as a thug life type person, you know, from the hood, they just completely ignore in terms of black males, right?
Yeah.
And they go after the black female. And the reason is, from what I've gathered from the black males that I've sponsored, is they just don't feel like that the Democrat Party or any party is talking to them.
Yeah.
And that they're not going to, and so the Democrat Party's like, they're not going to vote, so why should we talk to them, right? Whereas Andrew Yang has a black agenda. Like, he actually has a black agenda, and that includes black males.
Right.
And I think it was Killer Mike said that, and he was actually in the had Candace Owens sitting next to her, and he said red or blue, it doesn't matter. For minorities, what minorities need to start doing is saying, this is our agenda. And if you can't give us what we want, you won't get a vote from us. And I can tell you right now, there is no Democrat that is giving you a agenda if you're a woman, a minority, or somebody of LGBTQIA.
Right. But Warren's not going to deliver as much as Yang.
Warren, the only thing Warren is going to deliver is she owns a vagina. Right? Like, that's it. If you want a woman in the office, great. Right? But do you want a woman in the office that has terrible policy? I don't. I would rather have a woman in office that I believe in. Like, I don't want to have to vote for somebody that I like. Like, for example, you, right? I've maintained Asians would vote for Biden if Biden had Yang's policy and Yang had Biden's policy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there are probably there might be some Asians who would vote for an Asian. Hopefully most people will vote for whatever solves the most problems.
Exactly. Correct.
But I don't know.
Correct.
I don't know if everybody thinks that way, you know? I mean, a lot of people want to support the home team kind of thing, you know, the home tribe.
Maybe some people do. Maybe some people don't feel that way. But at the end of the day, I think that people who are disenfranchised, they want real solutions.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing, Fred. I am not a supporter of Warren. Like, I'll hold my nose if she gets the nomination. But I do think that there are people who support her, who feel like she's willing to stand up to big corporations, and that those big corporations have kind of run roughshod over the little guy. And so, do you agree? Like, there is an appeal to this kind of like, hey, I'm not going to let these big, multi-trillion-dollar companies kind of push us around anymore, kind of thing. Do you not find that some people might resonate with that?
No, it's all hot air.
You think it's a lot of talk?
Yeah, it's all talk. It's all you're oppressed. I alone can save you. I'm your hero. Vote for me.
Right. Okay.
In my opinion.
I hear you.
She's not genuine, right? And she's a terrible candidate for president.
Yeah.
I would vote for Nerds for Yang for president before I would vote for Warren.
Yeah, we'll have to get a YouTube channel on the ballot. Who would you pick for Yang's VP?
Well, my dream VP candidate would be Gary V, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Alyssa was talking him up a week ago on this channel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my dream candidate, right? Or Dan Locke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody like that. But in reality, I like Tulsi. Tulsi would be good, because she'd end the forever wars.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like if I was his VP, I would do what Tulsi's doing. There is no strategy to leave Afghanistan and Iraq. There, just pick up your stuff, load it in DC, and let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, some people in the chat in the past have said, "Oh, Tulsi's got some weird religious stuff going on." Have you heard any of this?
She is Hare Krishna, I think. And so my thing is like, if you believe in God, great. Like, I believe in Jesus, God, and the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't pray, and I don't like God. If there is a God, I believe He intervenes in our affairs by invitation only.
Mm-hmm.
And to be quite honest with you, I just don't invite God to intervene on my affairs very often. Right.
Right. So you're not using that as a litmus test for who you support, their religious affiliation.
Correct. So I don't I want to know that you can get the job done. Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, do you ever hear about Yang Gang on your CB? Do people still use CBs? Like, I don't even know. Yeah. So what do you guys talk about? You ever talk about politics?
We do, but usually it's yelling and screaming and using foul language, and you'll get the occasional racial slur thrown out on the CB, to be quite honest.
So does that mean throwing out Yangs?
It's straight up medieval on the CB. If you think social media is bad, the CB, and on top of that, right? Like people think that like you're gonna get the truck drive. It's 3.5 million truck drivers that they're gonna enter. Like, you do not want these 3.5 million truck drivers to try to enter the workforce. You want to keep them where they're at, right? These guys, a lot of them are freaking. It ain't pretty, man.
So they're not going to want to join a Green New Deal jobs training program and work with.
No, they're probably not going to want to. They're not going to learn to code. They're probably not going to learn to code.
All right. Let's see some more questions here. There's a lot of chatter here. Hold on. Oh, I saw this question pop up earlier. If Yang doesn't get the nomination, should people do? There's an argument that some people have that, well, they're going to vote for Trump only so he just like creates more of a mess. So it presents a wake up moment for the country. What is your opinion? What would you do if Trump doesn't? If let's say Warren gets the nomination?
Well, if so I don't like to talk about if, right? Because to me, there's only win, and that win is WHEN, and then WEWIN. So win, we win. So I hate to talk about situations that are not going to happen.
Okay, right? So you're not contemplating that scenario.
No, but in the event that Yang decides to drop out to take care of his family, because that's the only way we don't win.
Mm-hmm.
And Warren is the only option. We'll lose, and Trump will be he'll be the president. And if they don't impeach him, then probably by 2023, most of us will be eating out of canned goods.
Well, that's a pretty dark scenario there. Let's hope. Well, as you would say, let's just win then.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is when the robot trucks hit the highways and the robot cars hit the highways and people start really getting automated out, right? See, people don't think that this could happen to them, right? And then truckers actually over the last year are actually kind of being like, wow, this could happen.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's I'm not, to me, I don't want another Democrat in office. I don't want, well, one thing I would be okay with is if Trump won because they didn't vote Yang in, and Trump called up Yang and said, okay, I need you in the Oval Office to deal with this crisis that's happening, right? And to just take, the bulk of his policies and say, just hand them over to Yang rather than Trump, because Trump would just fumble the ball, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no amount of, Trump will do whatever it takes to be the first, right? I could potentially see him seeing Yang winning, and then Yang did win, and then him doing his last State of the Union address on PowerPoint, just so Yang couldn't do it. Right? That's a theory that I think he might do. That's how stupid Donald Trump.
That would be very small of him. Yeah, but not surprising. Yeah. Hey, someone's asking about the 10-4 movement. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, it was a Alyssa could talk a little bit more about that if Alyssa's in here. Is Alyssa Nerdiful in here?
She's in the chat, but she's not on the live stream with us. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm saying she's in the chat. So Alyssa could talk more about that. I would have loved to go to that, but I was already committed to the LA rally. So
what is it? What's the TLDR?
So that movement is a anti-automation movement that they have. It's a protest that they have in DC.
Oh, anti-automation.
Yeah, it's a trucking. It's a trucking
just sort
protest.
of suppress the development of the technology.
Yes, it seems like that's the main focus.
That's going to be kind of hard to do. Man always innovates, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd rather just accept it, embrace it, make use of it, and then figure out a way that we all win.
Yeah. We just need to harness the gains from these great technologies.
Yeah. Andrew Smith actually brought this to my attention this weekend. Or actually, he's been mentioning it for a while, but I only had time to listen to it this weekend. Have you heard this Eric Weinstein podcast? I think it's called The Portal.
I haven't, actually.
He actually does a great interview of Andrew, and I'd add it to the playlist. It's worth listening to. It's really good. Yeah. He's it's great. They're really Eric's a pretty smart dude. I think you'd like him. Let's see. Next question. Are the truckers talking about autonomous UPS trucks? I'm guessing with this 10-4 movement, that it would suggest that they are, right?
They are, right? But a lot of truckers, I'll be honest with you, a lot of truckers, you know, they just kind of stay in their hole. You know, a lot of them are kind of antisocial. They kind of stay in their own little world. And I feel bad because, like, you don't want these you don't want these guys in the workforce. It's going to be problematic.
Right. So you're saying a lot of these folks are kind of loners. They're not team players like in
They're really social misfits. A lot of them are social misfits.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they have, you know, it's a tough crowd, man. Honestly.
Yeah. And that's problematic because I think a lot of those individual sole person jobs are the ones that will likely be ripe for automation, and the jobs that will be available will require a lot of probably more collaboration, creative work, you know, team-based kind of workflows. And it sounds like these guys, because many of them are predominantly male, will kind of get stuck. They'll kind of slip through the cracks of the new economy.
Yeah. So we're hoping that that there's a solution that can come about. That's not, you know, obviously Andrew's coming with the trucking transitions are program, you know, soft place to land and stuff like that. And I mean, if anybody's out there and watching this on replay and that this is like the first time that they, you know, listen to anybody that believes in Andrew, you know, if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, if you listen to the book, and you listen to the breakfast interview, also the interview that they did, if you just punch in "staunch Republican" into YouTube, the first thing that pops up is me and Andrew, right? And it talks about, you know, me saying what I felt about Andrew, you know, and he's just very, very genuine. He's just a regular dude, man. He's just a regular dude with solutions. And he doesn't have this attitude that, like, hey, I've got all the answers, right? And I'm smarter than everybody. He's very collaborative, right? Even though he does have all the answers. You know what I mean?
I know, yeah. When I spent a little time with him, I was super impressed by how down to earth and just normal he was, but also at the same time super capable of answering whatever I was throwing at him, and that's a rare combination, right?
Yeah. Like I tell people, you're getting unbelievable humility,
right, mixed
with this, like, I don't know how to say it other than like big prick confidence, right? You know, like it's a weird mix of like just total confidence that's rooted in preparation and numbers and math and science and knowing like he knows what he knows of what he knows of what he knows. Like even Grant Cardone says, I may be wrong, but I'll never be unsure. Right. So when Andrew speaks, he's not wrong, obviously, but the way he says what he says gives you that he has surety in his voice. Like when I talk to sometimes people are telling me yes, right? But the way they're saying it means no. And I'll tell them, I'll be like, you know, if this is not a good idea for you or this doesn't work for you, just let me know. because you're saying yes, but like you're saying it like it's a no. So just
Right.
like level with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't say things to like make people feel better. Like the TYT people wanting to sign something about some progressive movement, right? And he was like, I agree with you in part, and I agree with you mostly, but how we get there is just different, right? And like, you're not going to browbeat him into doing something that he doesn't want to do, right? And he has a lot of confidence, and we're going to see it in these next couple debates as it starts to wane down, particularly not this debate, but the next debate where there's only like 8 or 10, or, like probably 8 people left.
Mm-hmm.
Then what we're going to do, because the worst thing you can do with Andrew is give him time.
Yeah, that's right.
Time is the enemy.
Yeah, if you're a competitor of his. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, obviously, when we saw the debate, I was actually in Houston when it happened, right? And I was at the Houston or the Texas Democrats. We had 60% of the room, and when he came out with the freedom dividend, right? First of all, shout out to Alyssa again and Sola and about 5 other people. I said, okay, guys, babysit me and make sure I don't yell at the TV. Like, I don't want to turn this into like a UFC, like, get him, punch him, kill him, right? Because it was like, it was like really stuffy in there, right? And there's all these TVs, and it's the kind of bar that they would hold a UFC fight at, right? And I didn't want to turn it into that, but as soon as he came out with the freedom dividends, I was like, turn the TV off. Debate is over. It's over, right? Right? Like a Vince Carter, it's over, right?
Yeah.
And then I was just like try to gather myself. But what really irritated me about the debate is they didn't let him talk for like 45 minutes to an hour. And the whole time, like, the mindset of scarcity hit the stage as soon as and they knew he was going to come out with something big. And whenever you had a debate where you didn't have a single question about the economy and no closing arguments.
Yeah.
That was by design, because they didn't want Yang to talk. So they waited 45 minutes to an hour, and they said, Mr. Yang, right? And they were going to ask him a question, and like 4 to 5 people crowded the stage, right? And I liken it to like Michael Jordan in the fourth quarter. Like, you're trying to stop him, and the last thing you want is to have the ball in his hands. If you can just get the ball out of his hands.
You don't want 2 minutes on the clock and Russell Wilson to have the ball either.
Exactly. You don't want our R-Dub with 2 minutes.
That's right.
Right?
Because he's going to make it happen.
Yeah, he's going to make it happen. Just same with Tom Brady.
well, yeah, Tom Brady too. Okay, now we did have another question. I don't want to start talking about Tom Brady. I'll get very upset. Are you interested in working for Andrew in the White House? If so, what would be the ideal position?
Well, first of all, I don't know if he would have me because, I'm kind of an out of the box person. But I told him I'd like to come up with a program for people that get out of prison, and I'd like to talk to him more about, addiction, because he asked me that. He's like, what do you think we could do? And I was like, I'll get back with you on that. And then I tend to get all my good ideas either when I'm driving or I'm showering. And one day I was driving and I was like, people love social media. So we should have a social media platform. And Andrew, if you're listening, we could do this. We could have a social media platform that I have a couple of great ideas. One is this social media platform that you start uploading it. The government starts uploading it 6 months before a guy gets out, which is like your primary contact. And then 3 primary contacts below that, and then your team of people when you get out. And then the social media platform, they would upload your release.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could upload both your problems and your progress on the social media platform for felons. And then it would have jobs connected to it that have agreed to hire felons.
Mm-hmm.
And then there would be like a 1-800 number. Like if you relapsed or you got high or did something, and then it would have access to your parole officer right there. And if you had police contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it would make it easier. And then there would be what I call daily grinds. So it would be guys like The Rock, Gary V, Patrick Bet-David, Grant Cardone, people like that, or people, people like Stone Cold Steve Austin, people like Danny Trejo, and then women too, that are hard asses, that are going to give people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Right?
Would you have David Goggins on there? Would you have him in the list?
Yes. Right. So yeah, you would have all these people that will give you, motivation on a daily, and then people could submit their stories about how they succeeded, and there would be interaction, right? And then you would have a felon that would actually kind of train you on how to, that's been out for like 5 years, that would kind of mentor you on how to stay out, right? Because each one teach one, right? So if I was going to take a position, it would be something like that, or criminal justice reform, right? I have an idea for an app that is in regards to criminal justice reform, where basically when the cop stops you, you just go to your app and you say, "Sir, are you here to protect or to serve?" And then you go to protect, and then there's a list of violations, right? And you say, which one am I guilty of? Right? Okay, I'm not guilty. Boom. It just puts a court date for you. Or, hey, I'm guilty. Okay, I'll pay it now or I'll pay it later. Right? And then you could rate your police officer, and it would make it easier. And you could actually even have it where it would record everything from the person's, because we got to have a conversation of why we're shooting so many black people that are unarmed, right? And I know it's probably going to irritate some white people that I'm saying that. Guess what? I don't care, right? I don't care, right? This is a conversation we need to have, and we're never going to have these conversations. We're never going to get over the racial divide if we can't have honest conversations and still be white people and talk about it, right? Because white people, they're afraid to have honest conversations about race and reform to the justice system, because they're afraid they're going to offend someone.
Yeah, and that's obviously been a tough issue for Buttigieg, given his police force and what's been challenging for him in his constituency. Well, look, Fred, I know we said we would keep it to around an hour, but we've set a new record. I feel like we could go on for a long time.
I feel like we could too, but let's go ahead and
we should wrap it up for sure. It's going to be a long campaign, so I'd love to have you back on. So let's just
we'll talk about we'll talk about the trailer and once that gets cracking, right?
Yeah. And then the pack, and then I'm sure some crazy stuff is going to happen in the race, and I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about there.
Yeah.
And
I would encourage you to reach out to Quintus Jet to get a clearer sense of what's going on with the pack. I'm a director. I'm a director of basically the attention market and the Yang Gang connection and Truckers for Yang, but he is actually the president. So it's not my pack. I didn't create it.
we'll reach out to Quintus.
Yeah.
So Fred, people, I'm sure watching this are thinking, well, many of them already know you, and but many of them might be like, wow, this guy's really interesting. He's got a lot of cool ideas. How should they sort of stay in touch with what you're working on?
Okay, so I just before I leave, I just want to say right now there is a group of there's probably because I'm big at I go by Fred the Felon because I'm building my following and I'm in the midst of writing a book called From Felon to Fantastic.
Ooh.
Right. And I tell people that felons and addicts don't do relationships; they take hostages. Okay, so right now, as we speak, Tom, there is a woman and there is a group of children that is being mothered by a woman right now that is being taken advantage of by a total lunatic addict or felon right now, as we speak. Right. And so if anyone, I'll give my phone number out. I don't care. Right. So it's 602-750-8751. I work best off a telephone. The rest of the world is email and text, and I get that, right? Feel free at any time to call me, text me. It doesn't matter. But I just want to say that right now, as we speak, there are families that are being affected by men that are little children that don't live up to the responsibilities of manhood and both protecting and providing for their families.
Yeah.
And teaching their children the way, that life on life's terms. And if you're one of those men and you feel ashamed of that fact, because it's very shameful for men to live that and to live through that, you can reach out to me at any time, and I'll do everything I can to help you build a new life for yourself. And if you're one of those women that has a man in his life that is not living up to his end of the bargain and living a life of self-indulgence and not taking care of his responsibilities of a man to provide and to protect his family, you can reach out to me as well, because sometimes I can work that out, with a boyfriend or husband and see that's really my passion, right? Is Andrew is just kind of, he's a great candidate, right? But my passion really is getting men to act, to put the drugs down and put the drink down and to focus on their families, and to
man up.
Man the F up.
Seriously.
Yeah. Be
Amen.
a man.
Yeah. Amen, brother.
So it's 602-750-8751.
Do you really want to give that out?
Yeah, you can put it in I do it all the time. 602,
right.
I do it 602-750-8751. You can put it in the chat, right? It doesn't matter to me. People call me. I've had people call me like they're on the other end of a phone. There's nothing they can do to me.
Well, what do you get some weird calls?
I do. And I say, I had a guy call me one day and say, "You're a legend in your own mind." And I said, "Correct. Thank you." Right. I was like,
next question.
I'm like, I believe in myself.
Yeah.
And there's no amount of you running me down or you trying to throw shade that's going to stop that. I am the superhero of my own movie and I'm directing it. And I encourage you to do the same.
Well, you know what? There's definitely some people in this chat who are in that theater rooting for you and inspired by what you're doing, Fred. So keep up the work and the amazing kind of the fight,
Yes.
to really make this stuff happen. It's going to be a slog, but I think it'll be worth it. And I'm so thankful that you came on the show. Are you mostly? Do you want people to follow you mostly on Twitter, or is there what platform is the best thing?
I have a small YouTube channel called Fred the Felon,
Mm-hmm.
and then on Facebook I go by Fred Ramey, but on Twitter I go by Felon_Fred, and again it's Felon_Fred. So you can follow me on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me, text me anytime. I'm here for anybody. You know, if you're struggling or if you're depressed, you know, or whatever, right? I'll make time for you.
Humanity first, brother. I feel like you're living it.
We're trying.
Yeah.
You know, we're doing it. We are living it. Yes, we're doing. Yeah. If we're not humanity first, we're Andrew first, right?
It's tied. It's tied. Yeah. All right. Well, Fred, it's 10 p.m. here, so I'm gonna have to sign off.
All right, later.
But I really enjoyed it. I know everybody did. I think we had like 150 concurrents throughout the interview, even though it ran like 2 hours, which is a freaking record. And I'm sure we'll have some clips out of this as well. So everybody else, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. See you guys later. All right, Fred. That